have an event that I have to be at right after this, so I'm going to leave quickly as soon as I'm done. So I'm not running away from you. I'm running towards something else.
The bars aren't open now, though, are they?
I'll get in somehow. I was taken by this statement that we read earlier. It says that we're talking about forgiveness and going from perception on to truth. It says they, that means us, cannot go directly from perception to knowledge because they do not think it is their will to do so. And so I started thinking about our will. We are just all graciously allowed to follow wherever our will leads us. There may be consequences, but we are allowed to find out what it does for us or what it doesn't. So the understanding that sort of gives me is that we could be right now with God if that was our will. It's really not. And God is okay with this. He's not going to punish us because of it. He allows us to explore what we call illusion, what we call illusion, as much as we want. The Course says that if you look up the Course for an illusion, it says it's an attempt. An illusion is not a thing. It's an attempt that you make in your mind to believe something is real when you know it's not true. It's kind of like if someone would come and say, yes, but that's not true. You say, don't bother me. I'm trying to make this real. And I make it real by getting excited about it, by donating money and time to it, and just giving my attention to it. Where do you want to put your attention? So, something being an illusion is a function of how you look at it. It's not a property of the thing. A rock is not an illusion. A rock is a rock. The question is, do you understand it's not real? And the answer is no. You, me, none of us understand that. We pick up the rock, it seems. We believe our perceptions. There's the perception of heaviness, so I believe that. And that's fine. There's no judgment there at all. It's just that you make it real to you, and as soon as you make it real, it's an illusion because you're deceived. An illusion always means a deception. That's what a magic show is. It tries to deceive you that someone is sawed in half, but through the perception, through what it looks like when looked at from a distance, that is. Well, everything here, nothing and none of it's real. But that doesn't stop us 1 minute from acting as if it is and thoroughly believing it is. And God simply allows us all to do that in any way we want. And our minds are limitless, so there are trillions of different ways we explore the possibility that there really is a will that works opposite to God's will and yet turns out somehow to be okay. So we follow that until we learn it's not okay. Somehow or other you learn that, well, I thought that just having a whole lot of money would do it. And then you get a whole lot of money, and at some point you realize it doesn't do it for you. There's something unfortunate about it. There's something, you're not satisfied. The way the Course describes it, it says that everyone discovers eventually that when you adopt a goal that the ego presents to you as one that will really work, after you have found it, you're still not satisfied. So the ego presents another goal to you. And after you find it, you realize that you're not satisfied. This can go on for a long, long time. How many times do you find, well, that doesn't satisfy me? And eventually you come to the place where you say, there is no will but God's. Now what that means is, actually there are lots of other wills but God's, but they don't work. It's like we want to, if you think of God as perfect love, to think of His will as perfect love, and we come and say, well, I would like to sprinkle a little specks of fear in it. That makes it more spicy. It gets, you can have some arguments now. You can divorce one and get another, or quit one job and dislike your employer, whatever. A lot of people are presented with the concept of of perfect satisfaction forever, unending love, would say, well, where's the drama? I want somebody to be running from somebody. Nobody's running. Everybody's happy. What is the problem?
How boring.
How boring. I even like police now. What is wrong? You know, I even like robbers now. What is wrong? You won't like either as long as they're illusions for you. If the chair is an illusion and a robber robs it, what is he taking from you? An illusion. So you still want it? You say, yes, I do, because you've just chosen to. You've chosen to believe that there are wills other than God's that will actually get better. You might think that the world is a collection of all the wills of all the people in it, in a certain sense. One wants to do this, another wants to do that. I think I'll live in Thailand. No, I want to live in the U.S. I want to live someplace else. Whatever. You get to try all these different things. And I feel that the amount of time given you to try all these things is not limited either. You can do it eons and eons and eons in one form or another. And yet, out there, beyond all that, there is one will that works, and it's the will of universal love for everybody and everything. And that's the way that the Course presents God, at least in my understanding. I don't feel that God can do anything other than love. Oh, he can't smack you across the face? No. He simply loves. That's all he ever does. And a lot of people say, how boring. I'm not saying that we wouldn't necessarily, or you would, I don't know. But our world is taken by drama. Drama just takes it over. Well, who are we going to fight today? Who are we going to be for tomorrow? I think I'll root for my team while you root for yours. We'll throw popcorn at each other. How about that? None of that means anything, you know, but it doesn't matter. It has a value at a limited level. You're finding out where your choices lead you. Now, the important thing is to enlarge your understanding of your will and its effect, and how much that brings it into your life. If you still think people are doing stuff to you, you know, some external source, another person or whatever, is doing stuff to you, you won't be learning what your will is producing. You think it's their will. And the Course says, really, you produce everything that, in an indirect sense, you're producing what's in your life, and you're producing it for yourself so you can find out. And you say, well, I don't produce these unpleasant things, do I? And the Course says, actually, you do. See, I don't believe that. Why would I? Oh, there's a police shooting, or a gangster shooting, or just one country going to war with another. Those people are not producing that. The Course has this statement. It says, you're responsible, so let's just focus on this a little bit. You're responsible for everything that comes into your life. Now, that is patently wrong if you believe, because that's the first thing we'd probably say, because there are lots of things that happen to you that you haven't asked for. I don't think anybody here would really disagree with me on that. You could probably think of something that happened in your life. Well, I didn't like that, and of course I wouldn't ask for that. I'm not an idiot. Wouldn't ask for that, my house to burn down, whatever. Now, here's what the Course says about that. It says you're actually responsible. It doesn't mean you're to blame. We're talking about power here. Responsible means you have the power. It says you're actually responsible for all this stuff. Now, the only way to reconcile your common sense with that statement is to understand that you must, see, because what's being said here in the Course is that it's your decision to produce whatever effect shows up in your life. Now, and since you clearly find some unpleasant situations that you wouldn't invite into your life, what that means is this. It means you have, but you don't remember doing it. You say, well, what do you mean, don't remember doing it? I wouldn't say that because I rarely remember anything I do. I mean, I'm just getting to that age, you know, walking in the room, why am I here? What do I do next? But forget this. But it says that we all make decisions so quickly that our memory is not able to grab hold of them, and so therefore we come out of it not remembering. Let's call them semi-conscious. They're not in your conscious mind, and they are in your conscious mind, but they come so fast You don't remember. That's how you get sick. You do it to yourself. You say, well, why would I do such a ridiculous thing as that? Or why would I have the police knocking on my door accusing me of robbing the bank down the street or whatever? Why would I choose my neighbor being so unkind to me? Whatever. I don't know what the reason is, but the Course says that you actually make that decision, but not an ordinary decision. It's I'm going to call it, I'm just making up this term, semi-conscious. I call it that because it's not unconscious. It's conscious in the sense you get to deliberate what the effects do. I really want this, and all that process you still go through. But evidently our minds can do it just like that, quicker than our memory apparatus can grab hold of it. And if your memory apparatus can't grab hold of it, you come out of it and your house is burning. Does that? Who did that? How did that happen? The Course says this is a universal law. This is not optional on whether you believe it or not. It's simply what's occurring. And it's that way so you can learn the power of your mind and check out if you really like your will. Okay? Now the problem, you say, well, my will is not so bad. I like this or I like that. The problem is there's an invader in our minds, of course calls it an ego, that never thinks with God but always thinks against God. You say, well, you're saying there's something in my mind that's not attuned to the will of God. Well, yeah, of course. There is. Do you believe you're separate? God doesn't. Do you believe you're unloving sometimes? God doesn't. I mean, he doesn't believe that. He loves all the time, so he cannot conceive, really, of anything else. You can. I can. That's because we have decided our will is different from God's, and then we complain about it being different. Well, it's your choice. It's my choice. And the world is very deceptive, because when your house burns to the ground, the world doesn't accuse you of setting it on fire unless you actually did that. I mean, of course, sometimes that happens too, but I'm not talking about that. It's just that whatever situation appears in your life, or whatever situation you have chosen, but not necessarily in a way that you will remember. Now, and you say, well, what? There's something wrong with my mind then, that it would choose, and I would agree, and I would allow it to go that way, because this is not done against your will here. What we're doing is exploring where your will takes you, and what happens when you throw fear in instead of just having love, or distrust in where you have, where maybe you could have looked at it a different way. God does not ever feel unhappy with you. God does not ever judge you. So if you want to judge anybody for anything, including yourself, you're allowed to do that. God doesn't dislike you for doing that. It's just it's not what He does. So the question is, when are we going to get to the place where we can set our wills aside and then join His will? And when we do that, we're going to realize that that is our true will anyway, because we actually prefer to be at peace. We actually prefer to not have drama. Drama's not real. It's stuff we churn up. And it can come through these semi-conscious decisions I'm talking about, or not. By the way, the quote that I'm having in my mind starts out something like this: "It is impossible for the Son of God, or the children of God, any of us, to have to have situations in our life that we did not decide for, to be affected by the external. It is impossible." That means it's a law. That's what a law is. It's like the law of gravity. It is impossible for that not to work. You got something, you let go, it falls, and it falls at a certain speed. It doesn't change. The acceleration of it doesn't change. It's a law. It's a law of gravity. This is the law of your will getting to have its effects, and you're not. But we're in. It looks like other things are doing it to us. It says that's never the case. You're always doing it to yourself. And you say, well, gee, I must be an idiot. No. It's just, but there is a part of your mind off track. And and the Course puts it under the heading of the ego, tells you all what the ego is like, The ego compares, it judges, it doesn't like it, it really wants you to be sick. You read all these lists of the ego traits and say, oh my gosh, I don't want that thing running my life. Well, it is to some extent. And the number of these semi-conscious decisions that come out and bite you on the foot, you might say, that lets you know how much you're being convinced by the ego that your will is correct instead of God's. There's no penalty on that, except it doesn't work very well, you see. Now, how do you get at this? You say, I've got these semi-conscious decisions, they're happening so fast I don't even remember. How can I make this turn out better for me? Well, what you can do is to understand that what the guilt, the way the ego convinces you to make yourself sick, say, is through guilt. You have some guilt in your mind. That's your weak spot, if you like. The ego comes in that and says, you're guilty, you've done bad, but let me show you how to get out of this. I've got a little trick, we'll do this and whatever. We'll just make you sick, and then people are sorry for you. Your life will be better. Well, in your conscious mind, you would never agree to be sick. Or rarely. It's really unusual. You know, people don't want consciously to be sick. But the ego says, you know what, your sister has never really treated you right. Every time she sees you, she puts a sneer on her face. You know, whatever. But what we can do, we can make you sick here, and she'll start to feel that she did that to you, and she'll feel bad about it. And you can get back at her in that way, and she might even start treating you better, see. Now, consciously, you're not going to go with that. I don't think. But with the ego saying this and using its arguments, they're all based on your feelings of inadequacy or guilt. You get rid of those, it has no arguments, that doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You have great power within you. You need to consciously access it better by removing guilt. That's the way you do that. In other words, you need to believe in clearly there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You say, oh, give me a break. I'm sorry. There is nothing wrong with you. Now, I'm not talking about your behavior. I'm talking about how you are. Every time we come up here, or almost every time we say, I'm still as God created me. He created you perfect. But the bodies that we have and the thought process we have, well, that's not perfect. He didn't create that. He's letting you experience your will now. So, and you can't learn for that if you don't take responsibility for it, you see. It is not about blame here. Nobody's to blame for anything. He just wants you to recognize you're a great center of power. You've got to recognize that, because you can produce the situation. That you don't get a bigger power than that. You know, and you can produce the situations. I don't mean by the work of your hand or something like that. It's just that you are deciding for this kind of situation or that kind of situation. It's like you're not making a situation itself. You're just letting it be over here where you are, so you get to experience it. You see, it is experienced it in your life. Every situation that happens, therefore, has something to teach you, if you're willing to learn. And this whole thing is about learning and healing of the mind, and that is necessary only because we think there's something other than the will of God and the love of God. The will of God and the love of God are the same. That's all He does. It's not He. It's just love. But it's intelligent, it's creative, and it's our source. You see? So we're into this other experiment. We get to do it, play with it as long as we want. But you will start, change will not start until you really take responsibility for the power that's yours. This is hard to do because it really looks like other people aren't treating you right when they aren't. Okay? That's the way we say it. But listen, if you pull back and take your power and say, my thoughts really are in charge of this, and they are, things change when you do that. And the reason they change is you ask the Holy Spirit, or God, or Jesus, if you prefer, I've got this power, but it's kind of out of control. I want you to run it for a while for me. It's like if you put me in a helicopter and said, drive this thing, Bob, I'm going to say, hey, I want somebody in the driver's seat. I don't want to be there. I don't know what all these little knobs and things do. I'd crash it for sure. I probably wouldn't even get off the ground. Hopefully I wouldn't get off the ground. Because if I did, I'd come back really pretty quickly. Our minds are kind of like that. They have more power than you realize, much more. And the key to it all is seeing yourself as guiltless. See, how can it? But I was mean to this person over there. Well, then let that go. All you have to do is ask the Holy Spirit to help you let go of that thought. It's not God's thought, so it's not forever. It's just something that you get to experiment with. So then say, I'm through with that one. Holy Spirit, take that one away. Wash it out of my mind, and He will do so. It's a matter of whether you want to hold on to it or not. You need to remake yourself in the lines of the Holy Spirit, and that simply takes you back to where you originally were anyhow. It's like remaking yourself into what you actually are already by letting go of the false stuff. And as long as you blame other people for what happens to you, you can't do that. It's wrong to do that. It just leaves you where you are, you see. And you don't have to be there. You're not using all your power. You are the one that chooses how you look at the world. You may not be able to change the world, but you can change how you see it. You see? And the Course says the world is not real. In other words, it's not a reality that you have to support and hold up. Heaven is real. That's your home. This world isn't. When we get to be here, yes, that's fine. Learn all you can, eat all you can, and so forth. But the Course says, forget not that the healing of God's Son, that means us, is all the world is for. It's not for your entertainment. That's really not what it's here for. If you happen to enjoy it, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the actual real purpose is not to graduate from the world and come before God and say, I had a really great time at the world. Well, did you get your mind healed? Well, no. Well, fine. Go enjoy it some more. This is where we heal our minds. And that the amount that they get healed depends to a large extent on your recognizing your power. You have help. It's not. We have help from God. We don't do it by ourselves. But using your power with God's help, we can let go of the grievances that we have. If you have a grievance, you need to be on it right now. Get rid of it. You know, I wouldn't wait another 10 seconds. As soon as you get home, see to it. Bring up that situation in your mind, and then ask God to help you see it in a different light. You're not becoming a wimp in doing this. You're simply taking to yourself your own power. And so you make your reality in reality in quotes. You know, this world, what this world portrays as your reality. You make it for yourself, and the Holy Spirit will come and help you do that. It works. It's just whether you want it. It's all about your will. Do you think it is your will to have simple lessons and an easy life, or do you prefer the difficult lessons of guilt and grievances? It's your choice.
So if you see your life as having guilt and difficulties in it, then you say, well, I don't want that, and you make plans to get around it.
That worsens the situation.
Yeah.
Because what we want to do is just to let God bring us what we really need and what can truly benefit us. And so if I have to plan for difficulties to come, I'm just not trusting in God's ability to help me out, see. And so He doesn't. I mean, you know.
And that would mean, like, if we saw ourselves in a world where the climate was continuing temperature to raise, to do anything to try and change that would be a mistake.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a mistake. It's fine to sweep the floor. I mean, that's just another example of improving your environment. You know, when you're home, you dust some, you vacuum a little bit, and you wash the dishes after you eat. There's nothing wrong with trying to make your daily life flow in a reasonable way. But you're not really trying to change the world. Just because I wash my dishes doesn't mean the law of entropy is going to go away. The law of entropy is that things get more and more disorganized unless I do otherwise. The law of entropy says that disorder increases if you just stand by. Your room never organizes itself spontaneously. It just doesn't do that. It just goes from here to, it goes from one condition to a less organized to less organized. So that's just a normal thing. But if you say, I need to take and put my protection into my hands, and then you are taking it out of God's hand, and He protects you a whole lot better, than you or I could. Okay, I think we'll quit here. Oh, yes, Matt.
I just wanted to ask, according to the course, since there are no accidents, and you were saying that whatever happens, we're writing it in our script
Yeah.
in so many words.
Whether we remember doing it or not.
So if you are a parent and your child drowns
Yeah.
or is kidnapped or whatever, the parents have written that in their script?
Yeah, for themselves. Also, the child has written it in his script as well, and there's something to learn there, and so what's being emphasized here is to not blame that on God or on nature or on the evil world that you find yourself in, something like that. The emphasis here is to take responsibility, which means reassuming your power. You have, I'm just trying to say, you have a huge power. This power, if you really have a power within you that can bring brings every situation into your life that you experience, that is a huge power. Huge. Now it's done. We'll talk more about this later time, but it is done subtly, but it really does come from your decision. It's kind of like going from one movie into a totally different movie, and seeing that one instead. And so the emphasis here is on your internal power. You don't know how to use it properly, or none of us do, because there is an ego in our mind. And that's why we need the Holy Spirit. So he balances that, you might say. You can listen to the Holy Spirit instead of the ego, and so we endeavor to do that continually, all the time. And then when we listen to the ego, that's how you acquire guilt. Every time you listen to the ego and follow that, you acquire guilt, and there's more ammunition now for the ego to use to make you think that the world's dumping on you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have the power. You really do. But not the power to make cars levitate. I'm not talking about it. It's a power that which car is in your driveway. I'm not talking about the power to remake the car itself or remake the driveway itself. We'd have to do that at the physical level, of course. But this is a metaphysical power that says the situation that you're experiencing, you have brought that. It might have been at the behest of the ego, or the Holy Spirit, depending on which voice. But the thing is that if you get in the habit of listening to the Holy Spirit instead of the ego, this will affect those semi-conscious decisions as well. See? And the key is seeing yourself as perfect no matter what you do, no matter what you think. You say, well, that doesn't make any sense. What if I think something hateful? Stop it as soon as you recognize it and let it go. You see? And if you do that, that is asserting that you're not hateful. You just had an alien thought in there from the ego, and you let it. An ant crawls across your arm. That doesn't turn you into an ant. Even if he stings you, get off. Let it go. You see? In truth, you're still perfect. It's just you clothe yourself with garments that are shattered and tattered and whatever. But you don't have to stay there. You have the power to be what you really are. This is a fact. It is a law. It is impossible. That's how you state laws. It is impossible that gravity be something, that gravity not be over there and stuff starts levitating up. Because there's a huge planet here pulling on it. You can't do that. It is impossible for situations to be brought into your life that you have not asked for. What you've got to do is to learn how to ask better. And you start that by seeing yourself as guiltless. If you still see yourself as guilty, you will ask incorrectly, because it will be coming from a base of untruth. Your truth is you're guiltless. Now, if you want to hold on to grievances, then you're not guiltless. You've chosen to be guilty. It's not guilt from God. It's just guilt from you. You're saying I'm not perfect, and I'm holding on to grievance. And that's the way that works. But you can let go of any of them. And like I say, if you have any grievance, make a list of your grievances. If you've got more than 0, your work's cut out. Get on it. Nobody can do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Almost forgot that.
Bye, Bob.
Okay, why don't we join in a circle? We'll have a closing thought.